This video is on quadratic inequalities. So I have x squared is more than 4. I'm going to start by thinking of numbers that x can be. So x can be 3 because 3 squared is 9 and 9 is more than 4. X can be 4 as well. So let's start writing some of these. 3, 4, it can be 5 and so on. So these are the integer values that x can be. Now what if I use the method I used to solve linear inequalities to solve this? So what I would do is I would try and make x on one side. So for that I would need to square root this side and square root this side. So let's do that. So square root of x squared is just x, and square root of 4 I can write there, and then that would mean x is more than 2. Now this doesn't work because this does work for these solutions, but I can actually think of other numbers that x can be that would satisfy this inequality. X can also be minus 3 because minus 3 squared is 9 and 9 is more than 4. Minus 4 squared is 16 and 16 is more than 4. So x can also be minus 3, minus 4, minus 5 and so on. So solving it using the method I use to solve linear inequalities doesn't work for all the values that I can have for this initial inequality that I had here. So I need to use a different method. Now I'm going to write another inequality here. So another quadratic inequality. I will try and solve this one. So we can have x squared minus 5x minus 14 is less than 0. So I need to find values of x where when I calculate this it should be less than 0. So I can actually write this like a function. So I can write f of x. So f of x is equal to x squared minus 5x minus 14. So I need values, so input values here, where I'm going to calculate this and I'm going to get an answer of less than 0. Now what I can do is I can actually try and sketch the graph of this and then just look at my graph and see where the values are less than 0. So to sketch a quadratic graph, I know I should factorize it. So let's factorize it. So this is going to be x minus 7 times x plus 2. So minus 7 and add 2 will give me minus 5, and minus 7 times 2 will give me minus 14, so this is fine. And I'm going to draw some axes now. So this is my f of x axis, so my output values, and this is my x-axis. So the graph will intercept it will intercept on the x-axis where x is equal to 7 or when x is equal to minus 2. So when x is equal to minus 2 and 7, so I'll just say minus 2 is there, and we'll say 7 is there. Also I can see that the y-intercept is going to be minus 14, so I can just mark that as well. So that's minus 14. And also I can see that the coefficient of x squared is a positive. So if this was negative I would have an N shape, but because it's positive it's going to be a U shape and it's going to go through like that. So I'm going to try and sketch this now. So just a rough sketch. I'm just going to adjust this here to the minus 2. Okay, so now I need to think about where my output values are less than 0. So for which x values here will I get an answer of less than 0? So I can see that my graph is less than 0 between minus 2 and 7. So between minus 2 and 7, so any number, so any x value here, so say for example I choose 1, I get a value of minus something here. So all values between minus 2 and 7 will satisfy this inequality. So my answer to this inequality, so I'll show this in green. So this is showing all the values that my inequality satisfies. So my answer for that would be minus 2 is less than x, which is less than 7. So x is in between minus 2 and 7. Also, I didn't say minus 2 is less than or equal to x, because here I have less than 0, so it doesn't include this point there, and it doesn't include that point there. Now, using the same graph, we can actually solve another inequality. So let me just write another one. So let's have x squared minus 5x minus 14 is more than or equal to 0. So I have this inequality. So where can I have x values where I'm going to get a value of more than or equal to 0? Now I know I can get equal to 0 if I put x is equal to 7. So if I put x is equal to 7 here, I will get equal to 0, and that's shown here. Also, if I put x is equal to minus 2, I will get equals to 0. I can see that on my graph there. And this is actually the graph of that. So where is it more than or equal to 0? I can see that for x values that are less than minus 2, it's more than or equal to 0. And also for x values that are more than 7, it's more than or equal to 0, because it's above 0 here. So I'll show that using a different color. So it's this section here that I'm looking at, and also it's including the 7, and it's also this section here that I'm looking at, and it's including the minus 2. So my inequalities that satisfy this here will be x is less than or equal to minus 2, and x is more than or equal to 7. So the solutions for this inequality are here. X is less than or equal to minus 2. I have values that are more than or equal to 0. And for x is more than or equal to 7, I have values that are above the graph, so that's more than or equal to 0. And the answer to this one, x squared minus 5x minus 14, is less than 0. I have the answer in green here, and that's below the graph because it's less than 0. Now, here are some questions for you to try. So, solve these quadratic inequalities. Okay, you need to use the method that I've used in the examples and bring that to the lesson.